So we learned about composition and inheritance. So when should I use one over the other? And this is pretty easy if we use the rule of thumbs we learned for both of them. We're going to utilize composition when we could say the terminology has a something. And we're going to do inheritance when we could say the terminology is a something. And before we get into it and try both of them, remember one rule of thumb extra that I would like you guys to know is try, especially at the early ages, it's mostly try if you ever have a statement that is both true for has a and is a, you need to try to go towards composition more than inheritance if possible. Okay, don't completely force it, but if you could see that both terms work, go towards composition over inheritance. Now let's see how composition we could utilize it in our application. So as an example, teacher is a teacher of many students. So what we could do is have teacher has many students. So one thing we could add is maybe, let's say, public for now. A teacher has an array of students, right? And inside the array, we're going to say students equals a new, I don't know, let's say of size 30 max. No more than 30 students. And then we could also keep track of the list of students by saying public int students total. Yeah, okay. So in this case, we have an array of students, and we can make this one private actually. Oops, and I pressed the wrong button. So we have an array of students, and we have a students total, which keeps track of how many students I currently have. Now, whenever we want to add a student, let's go ahead and create a method, void add. I'm going to just say add, and this is going to be student. And all it's going to say is students at students total. This is currently at 0 equals this current student that's coming in. Sorry, this one is an S. And then what? We're going to increment my students total to plus plus. So now I have one student. I cannot spell. There we go. Plus plus. Cool. And then if I wanted to print all my students, let's do another method just so we could see stuff. Show roster, I guess. Roster is being our student list. Let me put this down. I'm going to do a for loop and position equals 0 while the position is less than our students total and plus plus position. And all we're gonna do is say print out our students at that position, and at the top of this we're gonna say student list, let's say, and make this a bit interesting by adding a little tab in front, right? So let's go back here. So actually, before we go forward, just so you know, so we're using composition when an object is composed of other things, right? It has students, it has an ID, it has a student's total, so how many students are registered. We could probably rename this to something better, right? It has, well, it inherited from person, but it has a first name, it has a last name, and a teacher is a person. A student is a person, right? So let's say over here inside teacher, T, we're going to say, let's remove the talk here. We don't need those. And let's remove these for now. So here we're going to say T dot add A. So now that's one of my students, T dot add B. And then I would say T show roster. We should see a list of all the students that are composed inside our thing. You could see that here, right? So this is composition. So an object is composed of these things. When do we use composition? We utilize the keyword, the rule of thumb by saying has a something. And we should utilize inheritance when we could say is a something. Right? So can I say here, let's go back to teacher. Can I say a teacher has a person? Well, it's kind of true, but teacher really has students. It doesn't have other types of thing. A teacher doesn't have a doctor. It doesn't have a police officer, right? So even though we could say both of them, remember a bigger rule is to say it's always true type of thing. And if it comes down to it that this rule of thumb could go either way, could be a composition or an inheritance, in those cases, we want to go lean towards composition. Okay? For now, this is good enough for our level. I'll see you guys in the next video.